And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. And I'm excited to be with you all again. And Serge is back in between the episodes. We were in the midst of discussing uh, a question about some of the differences between why it's easy for us to go to sleep versus meditation. And Kris was just getting into different levels or layers of meditation, and there might be some deeper layers than even we got into the last episode. So I'm excited to see what's next.
Hmm. I think it's going to be a very good episode. That's my sense.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of a hit or an intuition that perhaps there's another state of mindfulness, perhaps a third one connected to dream time came up for you. So uh,
Cool.
we'll
Well,
we'll
maybe
see
we
if
can
that's
let him explain.
yeah. We'll see if that comes up. That's fascinating.
Well, we trust that you are once again comfortable, and we thank you for your mindful consideration.
Oh, thanks, Kris.
As we were discussing, there is a secondary state of mindfulness, which has to do with the observer mode in one's own awareness. But there is also another third state. This one encompasses so many different layers and dimensions of mindfulness. It can only be wrapped up in what you would consider mindfulness in dreamtime mindfulness, because it operates all at once on multiple levels, if you wish, multiple streams simultaneously, because in that state, the one who is mindful, the observer, whether you're observing from the first position, just your physical environment, or the second position, the contents of your mind and thoughts, or this third state, dream time, the observer changes. The modes of observation change, they alter, they expand, so that you can take in more content, as it were, simultaneously. Even though you might not remember a single dream ever, there are many people who think that because they don't remember dreams, they don't dream. But it is actually impossible to not dream. You might go long periods without remembering dreams, but you still dream. Those who are convinced they do not dream, it can be attached to all sorts of brainwave equipment and shown that they do dream. Everybody has rapid eye movement. Everyone hits certain dream states at about 45 minutes and about an hour and a half, and so on. This is important, even though you might not remember your dreams simply because you have not trained yourself. So, with practice, again, one can become very observant, very mindful of what their different dream bodies do whilst they are so nicely wrapped up in their blanket in their bed. So there is always more and more activity that is occurring at different levels, even though it is not necessarily an appropriate word. There are so many versions and variations of you in terms of dream self to visit many different kinds of dream environments. So these are all you and variations of you, all tied to the concept of you. Because a concept of you is not just a done deal. It is not just one thing. It is multiple things brought together under an umbrella. That's as important as is the very idea that you basically send out multiple dream selves every night to gather information, learning, wisdom, knowledge, to interact with others, to share. And many of the people that you encounter in your dream states, you will never meet physically. But these people may even exist in other parts of the world. And they may just as well also be probable selves. One way or the other, you're always engaged in interesting activities whilst you travel the streams of dream time. Each of your dream selves has its own unique approach to life, to its life. And this, in many ways, complements the ensemble of the self that you think you are, which might be very different from the self that you are. Being mindful in this way truly begins the process of closing the gap between what you think you are and what you are, so that you can align much more nicely, readily, and deeply with the notion that you are not just a unidimensional being, but that you are a multidimensional being, that you can and do have activities in those other realities you call dreamtime, or we call dreamtime with you. So you function at the different rates, at different levels, different realities, and yet you're always one. Because the one is the many, and the many are the one in this particular case. Does that make some sense to you?
Yeah, it's a little Zen-like, but I hear you. I feel you.
Indeed. And there is a reason why we describe it this way, because it is just outside the very periphery of the manner in which you consciously, intellectually, logically, rationally, egoically understand the world. In that worldview, the world is really black and white, with perhaps a few little shades of gray. But in this other world, you have literally multicolored perceptions. You understand more of life in dreamtime states than you do in waking states. Not that this is anything bad, it just is. And a great deal of the time you manage once in a while to bring gems from dreamtime into your waking time lap, if you like, into your awareness. Insights, solutions appear to personal dilemmas. You get those aha moments, insights. So these are the results of your excursions into dream time. And your life would rather be shallow, perhaps extremely so, were you not connected to dreamtime. It would be very unidimensional, yet you are multidimensional beings. So you exist and straddle all these realities without ever knowing that you do that. Unless you venture into mindfulness. And this may also be one of several reasons why some people, when they enter meditative states, find it difficult to focus, to harness their mind, as if the mind wants to go everywhere all at once. It's because there are such deep insights available, and you instinctively know, perhaps, that if you implemented some of those insights, your life might radically change. And by keeping this at bay, it does not necessarily delay the inevitable. It just makes it a little more difficult for you to grasp the notion that you are more than all the sums of your parts, which is very important. Does that make some sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And I'm having my own personal lesson in this, as because as you were talking about that concept, I realized that in dream time, in a dream, that I had dreamt about this episode, in particular the curtains behind you that Joseph hasn't used before, but yet they were in a dream I'd had, many years ago, and sort of triggered this memory of this episode. So there's got to be this wider lens or mindfulness that you're talking about.
Indeed. These kinds of precognitive dreams are more common than you would believe, because you might have been conditioned by society to be wary of them. You keep them at bay. You keep them out of your own mind, out of your own sight. Because if you acknowledge just how intuitive the whole universe is, it would blow away your notions. You would have to respond differently. You would have to create a different concept of yourself and life. So you kind of put a damper on some of these things just to keep a certain kind of status quo, same old going on. You might find it interesting that every single person in the world has encountered every other single person in the world in their dreams, in their dream states, without necessarily realizing that they have done so. They just see characters in the dreams. But these characters might somewhere else be quite alive and kicking some other part of the world as you know it. You interact. You might have dreams, for instance, where you attend large lecture halls, just like when you were attending lectures at university. There is a speaker. There are people all over the auditorium. You see those in dreams as well. And that is also quite pertinent. There are individuals who share of their information, and the best way for them to do it is on the Dreamtime platform. It is a special, if you want, channel beyond the capability of your cable TV, where many people can share the experience. This is quite common. And if you pay attention to your dreams, you might see them, these kinds of scenarios. And, that's what he was talking about. Please continue.
Well, I think that's a fascinating thing with the other people in dreams. And I'm thinking of when I write down my dreams in the morning, I sometimes will recognize people that I know and write down their names, but oftentimes there's many people in these dreams that I have no idea who they are, but and so I don't maybe note it. But as you mentioned that, there's lots of folks there.
Indeed.
Some of these.
And not all these folks are the results of eating bad cheese. And it is very likely that in many respects, these other people are in effect various aspects or reflections of you, as it is the case. They just come in a different package so you can observe. And each of you have their own separate identities. It does not mean that just because someone else is a reflection of you, therefore they are you. They are you, and they are not you. Simultaneously, they have their own lives, and they can look at you and think, is this me? It is not me, just like you would look at them in the same way. And yet, you are individuals, separate and united all the same. Take that, United Airlines.
Yeah, and I know, and maybe we've done so many episodes, I can't remember if we've discussed it before, but I've struggled with sometimes reconciling that, that they're their own person, but yet they represent uh, our own being as well at the same time. And perhaps you could go into a little bit about, is it our beliefs that, then I hold as an individual that will draw out a particular portion of their being or their own personality so that they're themselves, but what I experience of them matches,
Indeed, it is a reflection, if you like, a mirror. Certain traits and characteristics of your own personality are reflected in the other. It does not deny their own individuality, nor deny yours. In fact, it could very likely enhance your own personality, shore it up with extra knowledge, if you like, extra understanding. Even though both of you are separate individuals, that process is the thread of oneness that goes through all things. And it does not deny anything or anyone's own individuality. The ant is still the ant, even though the ant may represent or symbolize certain things about you, as would another human being. So you live in a universe of symbols and meanings. And you give that for yourself. They retain their individuality, and it has to do with a certain particular aspect of what you call the ego, which is often so maligned, unnecessarily so. You need to develop your own individuality, as does somebody else need to develop their own individuality. So you exist as separate from each other, and yet you are united. You are one and the same, separately or otherwise. This is how you become an observer, an objectifier. That's why you give meaning to everything. If life had no meaning, you would not be here.
Well, there's an interesting concept too of that life itself has no inherent meaning. The meaning comes from what we give it. Can you comment on that, or is that
Indeed.
accurate?
Even though it might appear that life itself has no meaning, the truth of the matter is, because you have meaning, life has meaning. So there is no such thing as, if there is no meaning, then there is no life. You exist, therefore there is life. In this or any other dimension or reality or probability or universe you can think of. In fact, there are universes because you exist.
And Kris, what about things then like archetypes or different things that Carl Jung may have described as like the collective unconscious? There seems to
Indeed.
be symbols or
And
meanings we all agree on to some degree.
indeed. And the key word is, you just said it, collective. So you agree on particular psychological and psychic meanings to certain things, but it's still a very individual understanding. And that is the beauty of human life. even though you have all these quote unquote archetypes, they are still so individuated that each individual's reality may resemble another individual's reality, but there are still significant differences, which makes it unique to you, unique to them. Without that variegatedness, life in itself would rather be black and white and rather boring. So you give it spice. The beauty of all of this is that the self, whatever that may mean to you, is almost a mystery, but not quite. It is as if you're always just on the edge of understanding this mystery that is life. You have glimpses of answers, little drops of nectar that urges you to discover more. Scientifically, yes, you may all agree, well, there are atoms and molecules and this and that. And yet, beneath that, what gives the atoms and the molecules their significance is the observer. Without the observer, atoms and molecules are more or less nothing. And this is something atoms and molecules truly dislike, a state of nothing. So consciousness itself gives birth to atoms and molecules. Consciousness has no void. Everything is filled. Even when you look up at the firmament at night and think, oh, this great vast space where there is nothing except a few stars and planets here and there, is so erroneous. Everything is filled with consciousness and life. That is an extremely beautiful experiences that you have crafted as a species and as individuals. So we encourage you to keep crafting. And with that, we will return Joseph to your lovely self. And we thank you for your crafty consideration.
All right. Thanks, Kris. Great episode.